So a question you guys have been asking pretty often is, I have X amount of money to spend. What FPV gear do you recommend I buy? And that can be a pretty hard question to answer because there isn't really one ultimate FPV setup. And depending on your specific needs, wants, and preferences, different gear might work better for different people. So the only gear that I can really recommend is the gear that works well for me. But that being said, there is a bunch of gear that I've tried in the past year that I've loved and I can vouch for. And honestly, I feel like a large majority of you, especially those of you just starting out, would also love it as well. So in this video, I'm going to start with a budget of $100, talk about how you can get started in FPV with only that, and then we're going to go up $100 at a time so that no matter what your budget is, I can tell you what gear I would want if I was in your shoes. I also just quickly want to mention that this video was incredibly hard to plan out because of constantly changing prices and sales. So if you guys find this helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, do whatever. It would really help out a lot. But anyways, let's get started. So first, what would be important to me as a beginner looking to get my first FPV setup? Number one, I want something that I can take out and fly almost as soon as I get it. So I don't really want any building to be involved. Number two, I want something simple and straightforward to use with as little tinkering and problem solving involved. I want all the gear to just work together. I also want gear that will last me the longest without feeling like I've outgrown it, and gear that is versatile. So if I do choose to upgrade one piece, that it'll still be compatible with those new items. I'm also looking for a standalone charger, which means that I don't want to have to buy a separate power supply to plug it into. I just want everything to be in one compact package. And finally, I want all this gear to be available internationally because I don't currently live in North America, and I know a lot of you guys don't as well. But when purchasing from US stores, shipping can sometimes be very expensive or just unavailable. So I'm going to choose gear that is as widely available as possible. I'm also going to mention that this won't include any of the tools required to repair your drone. It's only going to include the main components like your goggles, the drone, the controller, your charger, and batteries, as well as any add-ons to those 5 things. But now, let's actually get started with the video. All right, so if you're trying to get into FPV with a $100 budget, my recommendation would be to get an entry-level controller and a simulator. Now, at this price range, I feel like even if you were somehow able to put together a kit, it probably wouldn't be gear that you'd actually want to use. So, in my opinion, this is a much more practical solution. Now, for the controller, I recommend the Beta FPV Light Radio 2. This thing costs about $50. It's an entry-level controller, but probably one of the best at this price range. The sticks feel pretty good on it. You can use it with practically most FPV drones that you'll buy in the future, and it also hooks up to your computer very easily to be used with a simulator. In terms of simulators, I gave you guys 3 options here. There's Velocidrone, which is the one that I use. It's not better or worse than the other ones. It's just the one I'm most familiar with. There's DRL, or the Drone Racing League Simulator, which is probably the cheapest out of the 3, but it's also really great. And there's Liftoff. Now, feel free to take a look at all 3, choose the one that you think looks the best, and get that one. The best part about this setup is that you can practice and hone your FPV skills as much as you want while you save up enough money to get gear that you'd actually want to fly. All right, moving on to a budget of $200. So in this price range, I selected the Beta FPV Advanced Kit 2, which is a kit that will include everything you need to get started. So it'll have the controller, the goggles, the drone, a charger, and some batteries. And you should be able to take this straight out of the box and use it as soon as you get it. Now, I actually really had a hard time settling on this kit because I really wanted to recommend the Tiny Hawk Ready to Fly kits. I absolutely love these little drones, and I can't recommend them enough. But the problem with the Tiny Hawk kits is the controller that they come with isn't made to be easily used with a simulator, while the Beta FPV controller that this kit comes with is. And no matter what kit you buy as your first FPV setup, I feel like having some time to practice in the simulator is an important first step. One little problem is that this kit costs $200 flat, so if you were to buy a simulator on top of that, you'd probably be going over budget a little bit. All right, moving on to $300. And at this price range, you can actually start getting some pretty decent gear. For the drone, I recommend the Mobula 6, which is an amazing little whoop, and it comes with a charger and batteries, so it's super convenient. This one here is actually the HD version, but I recommend the original version, which is cheaper, and it's actually supposed to fly even better than this one. And that comes in at around $80. For the goggles, I recommend the EV800Ds. These were actually my first pair of goggles, and I really can't recommend them enough. The value that you get with these is just incredible. You could probably use these for a very long time without feeling the need to upgrade. And the great thing is that even once you eventually do, the goggle part comes off and you can use them as a screen so your friends and family can watch along. And a pair of these should cost you around $80. For the controller in this kit, I selected the original QX7, which is a great hobby grade radio and the one that I started with. You could use this for a very long time with any FPV drones that you decide to buy in the future. But the only thing with this one is I would only recommend it if you can find it at the $100 mark. Because first of all, it would put this kit at over $300, in which case you could always downgrade to a radio like this. And also there are other radios at the $140 price range that are a little bit better than this one. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. But usually the sale price for this is $100. If you can get it at that price range, it's a great deal, and I definitely recommend it. Finally, the last thing in this kit is a charging kit for the controller. And it comes with a battery and the charger so that you can internally charge the battery without needing a separate LiPo charger for it. And that goes for around $26. All right, so if we add a little bit more to our budget, this time I'm giving you guys an option between the Mobula 6, which again is a fantastic quad, especially if you want to fly indoors, and the Tiny Hawk 2 Freestyle, which is one of my favorites, but definitely designed more for outdoor flying. So you guys can choose which one you like better, and then I included some spare batteries for both. For the controller in this kit, I chose the Radiomaster TX16S, which is a little bit of an upgrade from the QX7 in the previous kit. Now, this one costs around $140, while the QX7 costs around $100. But for the extra $40, in my opinion, you get significantly more value with this one. Some of the features that make it stand out are a higher quality screen, which honestly isn't that important, but it does make the radio feel newer and more future-proof. A larger battery bay in the back, so you can have a higher capacity battery and have the radio last longer. But what really makes this radio stand out is the fact that it has multi-protocol support. And what that means is that typically when you purchase a radio like this QX7, you have to have a receiver in your drone that matches the transmitting module in the radio. So if you have an FrSky radio, you also have to buy an FrSky receiver. If you buy a FlySky radio, you also need a FlySky receiver, or else the two can't talk to each other. What makes the Radiomaster great is that it has support for all the most popular types of receivers. So you can use an FrSky receiver, a FlySky receiver, a Spectrum receiver, and this can work with all of those. So it just makes it a little bit more convenient. The next thing in this kit is a battery for the radio, and this battery can be internally charged as long as you just have a USB-C cable. so you don't need a separate LiPo charger to charge it. And again, we have the same goggles as before, and I added a few extra propellers for the Tiny Hawk and the Mobula 6, depending on which one you choose. Finally, if you choose so, this will put this kit over $40 most likely, but you can also get an extra USB charger so you can charge more batteries at once. I guess I forgot to mention that the Tiny Hawk also comes with a charger and batteries included, so you can use it without buying the extra batteries, but again, they only last a few minutes, so I definitely recommend having more. And now we reach a budget of $500. And I actually don't have a kit in this price range because I think, first of all, it's a little bit too much money to spend on a whoop like this. And it would probably be a good price range to move on to something a little bit bigger, like a 3-inch drone. But first of all, I don't have any of those, so I don't have any recommendations. And I also think a lot of you guys would be a lot happier if you just saved up a little bit more and graduated to a full-sized 5-inch drone. Now, 5-inch drones are bigger. They're probably the most standard size of FPV drone, and they can also carry a full-sized GoPro comfortably, which makes them perfect for getting cinematic shots. Now, they're also usually faster and heavier, so when they crash hard. This is why in this category, I think it's extra important to have a little bit extra money saved up as an emergency budget to buy replacement parts and any extra bits and pieces that you may need. So moving forward, I'm going to try to factor that into each level just to make sure that we don't overspend and are left with nothing. All right, moving on to 600. And in this price range, I chose the Nazgul 5 V1, which is what this drone used to be, and I can't recommend it enough. I chose the 4S version, which refers to the size of the batteries it uses. 4S batteries will be a little bit less powerful than 6S batteries, but the reason I chose them is just because the 4S batteries are a little bit cheaper and more affordable. Now, I flew 4S for almost my first whole year flying FPV, and there was never a time where I really felt like it was underpowered. So I think you guys will really enjoy it as well. But if you want to go 6S, that's up to you. Just keep in mind that the batteries will be a little bit more expensive. Next, we have the same goggles and the same radio as the previous kit. But unfortunately with this kit, we do have to buy our drone batteries and charger separately. So for this kit, I included 4 4S batteries from CNHL, which is the brand I use, and the ISDT 608 AC charger, which comes with a built-in power supply. And although it won't be able to charge all your batteries at once, at this price range, I think it's a great option. It costs around $60. Now, I know that seems like a lot just for a charger, but in the realm of LiPo chargers, especially if you're buying a power supply as well, it's not too bad. And now we're gonna build on top of that at $700. So in this kit, we have the same drone, same controller, same goggles as before, but I decided to upgrade the charger one step further to the Hota D6 Pro, which is a cheaper version of my favorite charger, the HobbyMate D6 Duo Pro, and I have both sitting up there. And I have a review on this charger and why I think it's so great, so I'll link that up above. But that costs around $110 and will be the last LiPo charger you will probably ever need. Finally, in this price range, I also factored in 6 4S batteries instead of 4, and that still leaves us with an emergency budget of around $60. So whether you need extra propellers, antennas, or anything else that may break, you still have a little bit of money to do that. At a budget of $800, I've upgraded the drone to the Nazgul 5 V2, which comes with a slightly larger frame, which is useful if you ever want to upgrade to the digital FPV system. And it also comes with a better video transmitter. We have the same amount of batteries, the same transmitter, the same goggles, but this time I included an extra battery for the goggles. Now, the goggles do have a built-in battery, but there definitely have been times where I fully charge them and they still run out of battery before I'm done all my flying. So having an external battery that you can plug in can help you double the amount of time you can use them, and it's just really convenient. So I threw that in there. Finally, this will up our emergency budget to around $80, which is a little bit more comfortable. Now at $900, we get significantly more. The first thing I upgraded was the Nazgul to the 6S version for a little bit more power. Some people would say that going 6S right away might be too much for a beginner. I personally think that you should be fine as long as you spend enough time in a simulator first. But if you think that 6S might be too much power for you, you're always welcome to buy the 4S version as well. It'll save you some money and you could buy a few extra batteries. So that's your choice. But here we have the Nazgul 5 V2 6S. We have 7 6S batteries, the same controller, the same goggles, the same charger, but this time I also included a parallel charging board with the charger. If you take a look at the charger, you can see that it only has 2 inputs for batteries. So you can easily charge 2 batteries at once, but if you get a parallel charger as well, this plugs into one of those inputs and actually multiplies it by 6. So with one of those inputs, it allows you to charge 6 batteries at once, which is incredibly convenient. Now, there is a specific technique to parallel charge safely, and I did a video on that as well, so I'll link that up above. Make sure to watch a video on parallel charging before just trying it at home. The next thing in this kit are upgraded antennas for your goggles. I have these Omni antennas and these patch antennas. This one actually comes with 2, so you can use one on your goggles and one as a replacement antenna on your drone, which is super convenient. And that should help you increase your range a little bit more. I also included this 90-degree antenna connector because to use this patch antenna on the EV800Ds, you want it facing forward and not up, and this is what's going to help you do that. And with that kit, we should be left with a $90 emergency fund. Now in this kit for $1,000, the only thing I upgraded was adding a crossfire receiver to the Nazgul and a crossfire transmitting module to the controller. Now, what crossfire is, it's this little box up here, and it provides me with a long range radio link. So it's more reliable, has lower latency, and will actually allow me to fly significantly further than the radio would on its own. In my opinion, this is one of the best upgrades you can make for your FPV kit. And in this case, it also leaves us with $70 as an emergency fund. All right, so far we've upgraded to a pretty great drone. We have a great controller, a great charger, and the only thing that's still really lacking an upgrade are our goggles. Now, I've been recommending the same pair of bulky goggles since the $300 setup, so I think it's time to level these up. And my choice for something a little bit smaller, sleeker, more comfortable is the SkyZone O2Cs. Now, I know it says Fat Shark here. These are not Fat Sharks. This is just a sticker. But in my opinion, this is a great mid-range level goggle that provides great value at $240. Now, unlike the EV800Ds, the Sky O2Cs do not come with an internal battery, so you do have to power them externally, but I didn't include an external battery in this kit because you can also power them using one of your drone's batteries. And that's what I've always done. It'll save you a little bit of money, especially since we're pushing it pretty close. So you could just do that. These guys here only natively have a plug for a 3S battery if you want to charge them. So you can't use your 4S or 6S batteries from your drone like you can with the SkyZones. Now in this kit, the cost of getting these more expensive goggles will be that our emergency fund will be lower at only $50. And that's pretty low, which is why if we jump up one more time to $1,200, the only thing that I add to this kit is a few extra batteries. So I included 9 extra 6S batteries, and this way, at least, we're gonna get a little bit more leeway with $100 in our emergency fund. Again, I know that might seem like a lot, but if you buy a few spare parts, like some extra propellers, maybe a motor, arms, some antennas, these things don't cost too much money, but they add up really quickly and you can spend $100 very easily. Which brings us to our next kit at $1,300. And in this one, once again, I upgraded the goggles, this time to the Sky 030s, which are definitely a higher end pair of goggles with a bigger and higher resolution screen. And these guys usually go for sale at around $380. Now, if you didn't want to upgrade your goggles further, an alternative would be to just buy more batteries. You could get 12, which is about my ideal number, or you could probably get even more. So whichever one you want to prioritize, that would be up to you. Which brings us to an awkward number of $1,400. And again, I don't have a kit in this price range. And that's because for me, this would be too much money to spend on an analog setup. And I think for a lot of you guys as well, unless you're particularly committed to analog for some reason, if you're just starting out and you don't already have a lot of analog gear, I think many of you would be much happier just saving up a little bit more and going digital. Now, you could technically get into digital FPV at a lower cost. You could postpone getting Crossfire or get less batteries or take away your safety fund. But these are sacrifices that I personally wouldn't want to make, which is why I waited until now to introduce it. So at $1,500, we have the Nazgul 5 HD 6S with Crossfire receiver. We have the TX16S radio again with Crossfire. But now we have the DJI FPV goggles. Now, the version 1 of these goggles has been discontinued, but the version 2 seem like they're going to be released pretty soon and at a similar price point. Personally, ever since I upgraded to the DJI digital system, I've never looked back. The quality really is great on these, and I've been able to fly really far without the need of any additional purchases. But like I said, these goggles have been discontinued and we might have to wait a few weeks or a few months until the new ones arrive. Maybe they're already out by the time you're watching this video. I'm not sure, but it's something to keep in mind. Also, because of that, if we bump up our budget one more time to $1,600, the only thing I would recommend upgrading is getting a few extra batteries. There are a variety of antennas and things you can buy to upgrade your DJI goggles, but at the moment we don't know much about the version 2. Chances are everything will be compatible. They seem to be practically the same, but who knows? At the moment, I'm just gonna leave it at this. Whew, that was a lot. I don't know if any of you guys actually watched this video from beginning to end, but if you did, I really hope that you picked up some useful information. Again, these are just the things that I would buy if I was making my first purchase today. What works best for you might be something different. But I do think that if you guys choose any of these setups as your first intro to FPV, you'll be more than happy. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Make sure to subscribe if you like what I do, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.